Why do so many normal people in the US become homeless? We have few to no protections for the working poor. Landlord decides he can raise the rent and you can't afford it? Tough. Something to think about as well is that a lot of homeless people become addicted after they have become homeless. Some as a way to stay warm or not feel pain, and some just as means of entertainment. However, homelessness can lead people to addiction and other behaviors of the same nature. Medical bills is the #1 cause of bankruptcy in America. Because anybody can become homeless at any time. For most people, they're just one bad medical accident from an irreversible situation. Believe it or not, many US homeless people actually have jobs and still can't afford a home. Yay capitalism, making human needs available for only the select few. IANAL, but I work for a disability firm. The process to get disability benefits for people unable to work is extremely long. Can even go 2 years or more. Becoming homeless is unfortunately extremely common. In particular, Florida is currently really bad because it's severely underfunded, and they basically have started to get help from other states to help with their year-long backlog. Social Security does not offer any sort of relief for these people during the waiting period. So what happens is that people who are unable to work start to run out of their resources to survive, and many of them become homeless as a result. What we do as a firm first is provide a directory to claimants for any other social services offered nearby where they live, such as NGOs that help with literally anything from food to transportation, because they will need them. Unfortunately, these types of services depend on the region. Some are better than others. Some people find services from NGOs that offer them shelter, food, medical care, etc. Many others do not. Many end up homeless in the process. Few to no social safety nets. Lack of familial bonds. Lots of people thrown out the house as soon as they turn 18. Individualistic culture which stops people from even trying to reach out for help. Culture of paying for most things on credit, which leads to crazy amounts of credit card debt, and having healthcare being tied to employment. Those are just some of the reasons off the top of my head. I'm sure there are many more that others can come up with. Because apparently a functioning welfare state is perceived as a communist ploy to overthrow the American way of life, and plenty of taxpayers will rather risk going homeless after a setback than pay a bit of extra taxes to cover for welfare programs. Basically, it's a matter of poor risk management. The majority will rather live with a small chance of losing everything over with the certainty of losing a small % of their income to create a safety net they think they'll never need. Fanatical belief in meritocracy is at the root of many of our problems. In the US, it is widely believed that the rich are so for reason of ability and hard work, while the poor languish for fact of stupidity and or laziness. We believe people make their own fate and get what they deserve. So people don't want to pay taxes for improving access to healthcare or expanding the social safety net, even some people who would directly benefit from such measures, because in the States, everyone sees themselves as a temporarily embarrassed billionaire. The thinking is, why should I have to pay for someone else's stupidity and laziness? Single quote. The place really is a trip. It's not a kind culture. I'm very glad I managed to escape. I am trying to move out of my parents now, and I have 3 jobs. With my main income, I make just under what would be considered low income. With my extra jobs, I make just above low income, which means I don't qualify for low-income apartments, and I also don't make enough for normal apartments, as I don't make 3x what they are asking for rent. With 3 jobs in America and no dependents, I still can't afford to have a home. It is partially to do with the fact that a certain politician, Reagan, demonized social safety nets to the point that now, even decades after his run, one of the two political parties that effectively control the country now run on the platform of lessening the extent that already unhelpful safety nets can assist. The rhetoric behind why people fall into homelessness and the ideology behind what kind of people that affects make it extremely difficult to climb back out of. If nobody is willing to hire homeless people for anything but the lowest of all paying jobs, and the price for homes continues to skyrocket, it's essentially like running a marathon where the goalpost is continuously moved away at double or triple, though more recently more like quintuple, the speed you're running. So the answer is somewhere between the way politicians see social safety nets. Most liberal officials are largely indifferent and most conservative ones want to remove them. And that many Americans believe that pulling yourself out of homelessness is just working harder or getting a better job. But the reality is that the factors dragging you down compound exponentially to the point it's nearly impossible to escape without positive outside influence. Can't pull yourself up by the bootstraps when you can't afford boots. Housing is too expensive compared to salaries. I called a hospital administrator a dumbass for faxing my phone hundreds of times a day for years. I was fired and sent to the streets. I have epilepsy and lived in Oklahoma. There is no support there. It was either pills or rent. I have a deep hatred for MBAs now. Have you seen housing costs? You're a paycheck or two or a bad month away from being out on your ass. Politicians won't fix the problems, they let corporations whatever they want. That affects the developers and landlords. They raise the rent prices. I say all times, American dream died a long ago. Fuck Nixon and evil root of all corrupted politicians and CEOs. Well, even in the US the vast majority of homeless people have drug addiction issues or severe mental illness or a combination of those and maybe alcoholism. But there are plenty of regular people who seem to end up living in RVs or vans. This country is basically going to hell because the cost of housing is so high everywhere relative to people's incomes. State social services don't cover an apartment or hotel room. Well, I'm in the US. And I'm homeless. I make $2,800 a month. And I rent a small office for $400 a month. I work overnights full time. And during the summer, I live on a beautiful island in New England. So I just sleep in parks. During the winter, I sleep in my office during the day and rent a hotel room on the weekends. I mainly do this because I hate the world as it has become. I don't want to be a part of it, but it's impossible not to. So, I play along. But I couldn't get an apartment right now if I wanted to. There are waiting lists that are sometimes years long. And families or single mothers take precedence. Widowers like myself need not apply. Then, you must prove you make at least 3 times your rent in order to be accepted. Then, you need to be able to pay first month, last month, security deposit, and mailbox fees up front. In my homeless wanderings I've come across families where both parents are working full-time yet they still live in tents. Everywhere I go, I hear people talking about getting evicted because they can't afford the quarterly price hikes on their rent. On top of all that, the police are wiping out all the places that used to be safe and harassing us with rhetoric about re-education. You want to know why it's getting harder to live? It's called apartheid. Specifically by the 1%. They already have everything. And now with AI and robots, we are completely useless to them. All the wealth goes to the top and doesn't trickle down, so even if you're educated, skilled, or a hard worker 40+ hours a week, it doesn't matter. Like others have said, if you don't have family, friends to rely on and take you in, then you're done. 4. Also, lack of help for mental matters. The US is basically a recipe for a dystopia at this point. Too many jobs that don't pay enough so that people can afford rent, food, electric bills, transportation costs, and health insurance. Companies don't offer decent health insurance, and if they offer anything, they take so much money out of people's paychecks that they can't afford rent, etc. People end up having to choose between health insurance and rent, one serious illness of them or a family member, and they're forced into bankruptcy.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.